please help me welcome to the stage Marc Allen, who is the president of Boeing International and the senior vice president of Boeing Company. Marc Allen, everyone.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it. All right, good evening. First of all, a big round of applause, I think, for Carol and for the work she's done today. Incredible to keep us on track. To have the chance to begin with the Prime Minister and the Mayor, it was, of course, special. And for us to be able to have the substantive agenda that's packed in after that is really fabulous. So well done to the organizers. Listen, number one, I do want to tell you that while she gets that applause, I did ask her to make sure you all had wine for this portion, and you don't have it in your hands. So obviously, we'll work on that later. But listen, I'm going to spend a few minutes walking through what I heard today and digested, and also share with you some of Boeing's views of these key issues of impact, of innovation, and of integration, and tie them to who we are as a company. And I think after that, I hope that during the break, we can have just some exchange and some questions. But let me start here, first of all, with a big thank you to the many of you in the audience who are Boeing suppliers. I saw a number of you today put up slides demonstrating your commitment to aerospace, to the Boeing Company, and to other of our partner companies. And I'm deeply appreciative, as is the whole company. So thank you for the work that you do with us. To Chicago, this is a special city. We moved here in 2001. We moved here in part because we thought it was a good place from which to really manage our comprehensive manufacturing system, which first sprawls across the United States and then sprawls globally. We found here a very welcoming, diverse, and skilled workforce, and so Chicago's been a great home. And I'm really delighted to see the integration with Italy between the city of Chicago and the leadership of Italy, because these are two great spaces that are working together in pretty intentional ways. You know, Chicago has certainly evolved over the last 20 years as a global city, and it's a path that's been, I think, reflected and in many ways mirrored by Boeing, as Boeing has also grown and emerged as more and more of a global company. Now, by no means are we there yet. The path to being a true global company for us is still a long way to go. We remain an exporter, first and foremost, with yet a very large presence around the world of customers, of suppliers, partners, of stakeholders that we work with on a regular basis. And so as we look to continue our evolution, we begin with the idea of partnership. And we are confident that when we think about what is innovation in manufacturing, those partnerships will be at the core of it. We have a global production system. Despite the fact that we do final assembly of our airplanes, for example, in either Puget Sound of Washington State or Charleston of South Carolina, nonetheless, the planes themselves are truly manufactured through a constantly moving 24/7 global production system, which includes our partners, many of whom are in Italy. And continuing to build out those partnerships, continuing to make them more effective for a purpose I'll come back to in just a moment, is really where we see a great deal of necessary innovation. And that's not to limit by any stretch the needed innovation around automation that was talked about today and robotics, around additive manufacturing, and continued developments around lean technology. All of these are very real, and all of these are necessary to continued advancement. But I make the point about partnership because we simply don't think you can tap into these other innovations without best talent, best capital, best stakeholder group. And that is something that at this point has to be measured on a global basis, not on a national basis. And it's the partnerships across industry that help us tap into that talent in the most effective and direct way. Now, as we evolve, I'll tell you, let me start, I guess, with history. So Boeing and Italy have a history that now dates back almost 70 years. Originally, it was Douglas aircraft with propellers that spun that fueled the Italian fleet. And then we took a big bet as a company, and we were the first out of the box with a jet airplane in the 707. And pretty quickly, the 707 became a dynamic contributor to Italy as it became one of the first all-jet fleets around the world. We continued that progress of advancement to the point where today we are intimate partners with many suppliers, and with Finmeccanica, largest among them, on our 787 Dreamliner program. A program that can't succeed for either of us unless we succeed together. And so we've invested $5 billion over the last 5 years through this and our other connectivity points, whether it's manufacturing the military rotorcraft, the helicopters that we also do with Finmeccanica helicopters in Italy, or whether it's the work we do on services for our military products like the tanker aerial refueling aircraft. where we bring in big data analytics, where we bring in our familiarity with the product and with the supply chain in order to provide performance-based logistics services that get the most in terms of output and efficiency for Italy. So the history has been deep over that 70 years, and it's grown now to a significant, meaningful scale. And the question is, what comes next, and what does it look like for us to try to continue to evolve the relationship? And I'll tell you, the answer boils down to this: global competitiveness. Global competitiveness. We both share a tradition of great quality and craftsmanship in what we do. You know, Bill Boeing started this company 100 years ago on the shores of Puget Sound. And it very early on established a reputation for craftsmanship. And I think that is quite well paralleled by the craftsmanship that we see out of Italian industry. Think about the renown for car manufacturing we've been talking about today. And it's not just one, whether it be the Ferrari or whether it be Alfa Romeo or Fiat. The relationships across the industry are so deep and the talent is so deep that the entire national base is recognized as the highest level of craftsmanship. And I think that's the same is true in aerospace for Boeing. That quality and craftsmanship has to be the base from which we move to productivity. And productivity has to be ultimately about pulling forward cost competitiveness. And so when I say global competitiveness, it's about taking and harnessing that strong base of quality and craftsmanship and tying it into cost competitiveness, necessary in a world where there are emerging competitors from every side. The auto industry is just one example, and you can see the great evolution and churn that has gone across it over the last decade. And in our business as well, people look around and only see two competitors right now, but I can assure you it won't be just two competitors forever. And as competitors come online, they will come online with a very different cost basis, with a very different geopolitical positioning, whether it be market access or government support. And all of these things won't have answers in parallel terms. The only real answer will be cost competitiveness that we can drive into it, and that will especially be impacted by these supplier partnerships, which are, as said earlier by one of the panelists, about solutions, not just supply. Suppliers can't just be suppliers, they have to be partners in that global production system, or we won't maximize the opportunities inherent in the quality and the craftsmanship to lead to productivity, to get cost competitiveness. And if we don't have cost competitiveness, we simply won't have the strong sword we need to stay at the forefront of our industry. So that's one of the things I would issue as kind of a call to arms for everybody in the room here, to be thinking about how in your business are you not just innovating to that next level of robotics, but how are you making it most effective to ultimately drive that global competitiveness? Here's an example. We have been absolutely world class at designing aerostructures. I'm very confident standing up here and saying that. We have thought more than any other organization across the world about how most efficiently to move an airframe through the air. And we've delivered to our airline customers incredible savings through that fuel efficiency that the aerostructure design enables. Yet, have we been world-class about thinking how to design for producibility? How to design that aerostructure so that it's easy to manufacture, so that it's easy to add automation, so that it's easy to add additive manufacturing? We have to get better at that. Because it is in getting better at the merger of these two pieces in the design for producibility that we will create that global competitiveness. And likewise, every single one of you, I hope, in your businesses, in your academic research, in your centers of research and inquiry, I hope you're pulling forward the same kind of challenge to figure out how you integrate the whole puzzle to create that greater competitiveness. It's absolutely essential if we are all to be world-class in our chosen domains. So when we think about these elements of impact, of innovation, and of integration, and we do large-scale integration, this is the kind of thinking right now that sits at the core. And I heard it said earlier today that velocity might be one of the greatest challenges ahead. I think that's a really well-taken point. Because in what we do, we have very long cycles of our business, we have very long cycles of our product development, and we are constantly thinking about how do we get shorter in those cycles for advantage in the market. And it's a great challenge. And so as your businesses come up with acceleration elements and ideas, that will only, in aerospace, be a continued strength and selling point and a part of your global competitiveness. Now, I will say this to close on this last point. The discussion about robotics fascinates me. Robotics will be an important part of the answer, and I think the parallel to Gutenberg is terrific. But think about it. There's one thing you cannot do with a robot. Well, there's probably more than one thing, but right now I can think of one thing. I think you'll be able to do your laundry. What you can't do is you can't motivate it. How do you motivate a robot? Machines you turn on and off. You don't turn me on and off. We don't turn you on and off. People get motivated. And all of you who run large organizations know that your best performers operate at a 10x return to your average performers. And that 10x return is about motivation and capability. It's about talent. A robot will be a machine, not subject to that last intangible. We all should be thinking about that, because in our business, and I would expect in all of yours, the way you help drive innovation and impact, and the way you succeed in the most difficult of integrations, is by having the right team and talent and motivating it in a big way. Our purpose is to protect and connect more people in the world than any other institution. Every day, 9 million people go up in the air in large commercial airplanes. Every single one of those 9 million souls must come down safely. It's imperative. In our defense and space business, we protect more individuals than you can fathom every day by our product. You heard it said earlier by the Prime Minister that the children attacked in Pakistan were destroyed by the enemies of freedom. And there's a purpose in what we do when we build our defense systems and when we empower governments to protect us that helps motivate us and helps drive us forward. And we as business leaders, we as government leaders, we as academic leaders have to hold on to that, have to remember that, have to keep that at the forefront of much of what we do. Or we'll actually miss a great deal of the opportunity as we think about innovation. Because innovation will ultimately simply be the tool that empowers us to go faster and further on the things that we're motivated to accomplish. And if it's just a question about the machine, we'll lose the motivation. So I would just also give that to you as a thought to tuck away. Each of you has great mission and purpose in your businesses, and I can only encourage you to continue to pursue that and to share that across your people, and to make sure that's part of the story that we tell to all of the world when we encourage the world to see the value of manufacturing, what it creates for us, what it does for the lives of our loved ones, what it does for the well-being of our nations and for prosperity broadly, what it does for jobs and for communities. The story of manufacturing is not just a dry story. It's not just a story of something on a page. It's a story of something that impacts the world and that matters. We're very proud to be a part of manufacturing. We're very proud to be a leader of aerospace manufacturing. And we're very proud to be partnered with so many of you and with Italy in this effort. Now, with that, I'd like to invite you to have a glass of red wine after properly instructed. Carol.